Alright, welcome back everybody. We are on session 4 of this campaign. So last time, y'all went up into the Hager Cribs. You found a shrine that had a very, very nasty troll in it who seemed to have been sealed in there by quite a number of goblins. Y'all killed a ton of forest goblins, a fair amount of spiders. You battled your first group of spider riders on the slopes of the Hager Crypts themselves. You killed your first stone troll, being the marvelous heroes you were, but you ended up having to evacuate and retreat back down the Hager Crypts to camp because you didn't want to stay there during the night for understandable reasons. That being said, you all made it back to camp relatively safe and sound. Some of you are more beat up than others, and we literally just got back to camp at nightfall, and you all went to bed. So with that, we are ready to resume where we left off. And I would remind the four of you that you were sent to find the shrine by Anders, but the elf Verve kind of put pressure to not immediately turn in for reasons that we might get to explore this session. So without further ado, it is day. All of you are able to wake up and resume life as normal.
So, Drac was using the troll's head as a pillow. Has he gotten any weird looks?
Probably, yeah. That's probably mostly due to sanitary concerns as opposed to anything else.
I mean, it's been cauterized and shit.
Still, like, rotting flesh at this point.
It's also a troll head, so there is that.
I don't think most people would choose to sleep on it.
Drac has no pillow. He's making do.
It is morning. All of you can smell what's going to be passing. Wrist, you do get woken up a little earlier than the others by the other halflings coming into the kitchen and getting to work on breakfast for the camp. Breakfast is one of the meals that is the most mass-produced meal, because A, it tends to be kind of noisy, which starts waking people up very, very quickly, and B, it's usually the meal that the most people are present for, so it's usually the largest but also most messily made meal of the day. If you'd like, you can choose to help out with it, maybe earn a little pay, or work your way towards earning a paycheck, or you can just sleep in or go do something else.
I'll go and help him out. Maple needs some friendly help. My
All right.
cousin isn't talking much.
You will, you are not the chef in charge, so you will be assisting with the chef instead of leading operations. That being said, he assigns you to a couple of roles, cutting up a few various kinds of meats that they have to basically, pretty much every morning, they get away with making a fair amount of bread to go alongside a very mixed meat stew. It's not bad quality meat, it's just basically whatever the hunters and foragers bring in. But it's pretty mixed. But go ahead and roll an easy cook check.
That's plus 40, right?
Correct. Alright. You don't screw up any of your part. You don't accidentally cut your hands off or anything. Everything goes fairly according to plan. It's not anything particularly special or outstanding, but you help get breakfast made. That'll occupy you for about an hour. But this is like super early morning, like 6 a.m.
Oh.
The sun is just starting to give hints of coming up. Y'all are in late summer, so the sun does come up fairly early, but it's still going to be a bit. Did anybody else want to get up earlier? Would the rest of you rather...
I'm getting up early and going to the...
Okay, you want to go see Silverhand?
Yeah, because you told me that's the first thing I have to do.
That's correct. Both wizards need to see Silverhand ASAP.
Okay.
If you want, Vertstadt, you do have the option, if you would like, on sleeping in for a decent number of extra hours to get rid of the tired condition you acquired over the evening, but it will prevent you from joining in on, like, morning activities.
No, I'll get up and go to the tower as well.
Okay, we'll go ahead and send both of you together, because that'll just make life easier. Dwarf, do you want to just sleep in, or are you going to get up and begin your day?
We're just gonna see if he can talk to any of the... To my knowledge, who would be the best one to talk to about the fact that the local trolls and local goblins don't seem to be getting along?
You will probably have to flip a mental coin about who to go for that. There is no obvious answer.
Okay, mental coin flip between... I as the player, am drawing a blank on the names of the NPCs.
Probably the best people to go to would either... You could go see Braun, who is the leader of the Dwarf Company. You could go see Rolf, who is the leader of the Bloody Hounds and kind of like the acting commander of the camp. You could try and go see Silverhand. Those are probably the main three. Those are the only three that have any sort of authority.
I'm a dwarf. I'm gonna go see the dwarf.
Okay.
Let's keep it simple.
Yeah, we'll start with you then, because your trip is the shortest and simplest. So you're able to make your way around the side of the camp, and the dwarves are already up early, working away at their machine, which is very slowly but surely coming together.
After we rest, do we take another check to see how many wounds we get back, or
no? That only happens when you rest, and y'all took it at the end of last session.
Okay.
That being said, you can always go visit the surgeons.
Drac does have his stone troll head as proof of what he's talking.
Great. All right. As you approach the dwarven camp, many of them are bleary-eyed. Clearly, although they are used to, they look like they're probably used to being up this early, but nonetheless, nobody's happy about it. They pay you.
Are we ever really happy?
They pay you no mind at all. Nobody tries to stop you or challenges you.
I go looking for Braun.
All right, you do see Braun with his iconic silver.
Oh, he has a new model.
Yes, he does. With his iconic silver leg gleaming in the receding starlight. He sees you approaching and sort of nods, and he frowns a little bit as he sees you, and he says, "Looks like you've had a spot of trouble."
Ran into some goblins and a troll on a job for one of the humans.
He nods and says, "Figured they'd put you to work hunting out those Groby. We would, but the Kvinting clan is needed here, working on our projects. We can't, unfortunately, spare any Dawi to go hunt down those filthy woodcrutters."
Yeah. On that topic, you're more, you and your kin are more knowledgeable about them around here than I. Are the Groby fighting trolls? Is that common around here?
He sort of shrugs and says, "Among the Trikruti, maybe. They don't often use trolls in the few times they attack the camp. Rarely, if ever. You're more likely to see those skulking underground Groby using such behemoths, beasts. The spiders and the trolls tend not to get along, I think. Maybe they're natural competitors."
Because we ran into a stone troll in a cave. They had seemed to be cordoned off, and it had accumulated quite the collection of goblin.
He does frown and sort of scratches his beard and says, "Cave? Did it lead deep underground?"
You never really talked about the one.
No, it's fairly. It was very
shallow. Okay.
Yeah. What you saw is what you got. It was like right out of the entrance.
No, it was a shallow cave. Seemed to have some kind of shrine in it.
He goes, "Bah!"
And then And he also mentions the mushrooms, not they weren't madcap mushrooms.
No, they were just glowing mushrooms.
Yeah.
Uh, He just lets out a bah. Sounds like normal nonsense in these bizarre peaks. There's good reason you don't find any Dawi digging here. Only the Ungi are daft enough to try and mine from these mountains, and even then, those operations are much further south of here.
I wouldn't exactly call these mountains anyways.
No, they're not. They're a pretty poor excuse for it, but they do go deep. He gestures with his hand to the trollhead, says, "You might fetch a price for that if you turn it in with Rolf's lads. They pay bounties for bringing down the big problem causers."
I was planning on talking to him next. Figured I'd check in with my kin.
He shrugs and says, "Can't say I have anything for you in regards to the critters around here. We're as far out of our element as you are as far as how the Groby behave out in open space like this."
Fair enough. What is Braun's official title? He's not a Thane, right?
No, you would have to talk to him about it, but he is not a Thane.
Okay.
He does not have an obvious... It seems that he's in charge here, but he does not have a royal... There's nothing...
But he's very obviously a long beard, right?
Yes, he's definitely old.
Okay.
Probably he's the oldest dwarf you've seen so far.
Got it. I will not bug him on that just at this moment. I will politely take my leave and start meandering over.
Alright. As you're heading there, let's pop in with the wizards. That's fine, Wrist. Oh yeah, you did roll sleight of hand. That's funny. Well, that's good for cutting vegetables, right? Alright, so let me do this. And then let me do this. And this. And this. And this. And this. And this. Alright. Vertstadt and Verv, the two of you arrive together to Lord Silverhand's tower, his bizarre magical fortress. And as you step inside, your senses have developed a fair bit since your last time coming here, and walking in it's very dazzling. It's sort of like if you've been in a dark or like a nice dimly lit room all day, and then you have walked out into like blazing sunlight, because there's so much air of chaman in the air. The wind of metal, that it's just absurd. This place is drenched in it. Like the air tastes metallic, and there's a very faint ringing, like rhythmic ringing in your ears, and all 5 of your senses are almost assaulted by the sheer volume of magic that's blatantly on display in here. But after a few seconds, you adjust so that it's just kind of a dull annoyance as opposed to a blinding affair.
I guess I will walk in. Is he doing anything?
He is sitting at the same desk you left him at, and he does have his mask on for the moment and is looking at a series of books, his eyes doing the bizarre display of shifting various hues of different metallic colors. But he does seem... there's no way he's not aware of your presence, because the doors did seem to mystically open themselves and close behind the two of you as you entered.
I'm trying to remember why I'm supposed to come.
You need a magical license, and I'm not sure what I need.
You both need a magical license. Or equivalent.
Oh, an equivalent, that's right.
And that's what you're here for.
I will kind of clear my and say good morning.
He sort of nods absentmindedly before he reaches up a hand and removes his silver mask. And when he does so, his eyes settle almost immediately back into a warmer brown color. And he frowns up at the two of you and says, "Ah, you're back. I trust you haven't run into any, or should I say, caused too much trouble."
We've been rooting out the goblins or rather they have been trying to root us out and not succeed.
He nods and sort of sinks back into his very oversized, comfortable chair and says, "Killing goblins, is that all you've been doing?"
Well, we killed a troll too, so there's that. One less troll. And we've been on sort of a mission for Lord Anders.
He nods and says, "Ah, I see you're focusing on his efforts. I take it that his offer has proven more lucrative than whatever Rolf may have suggested, then." Fine, fine. Just remember that you are expected to perform your work as part of the camp at some point.
Of course.
He gestures to the chairs in front of him, and two of them sort of just melt away. But two chairs remain stationary for the both of you to sit in.
Verstat takes a seat.
He crosses his fingers and leans forward, putting his elbows on his table, and says, "I have been thinking about the two of you a bit since our last discussion. And I know that we negotiated a apprenticeship of sort, or at least access to my library, but I think in light of coming events, it would be wise for the both of you to be brought on in a more official capacity, at least in title."
What did you have in mind?
He reaches into a bag he has sitting on his desk, and he pulls out two silver badges, and he puts one before each of you, and he says, "This will indicate that you have a fealty, or a pact, we'll say, with me, and are performing in a professional and observed sense. Now, I will note, I will not attempt to trick or lie to you, that these amulets will give me a vague sense of what sort of magics you may be unleashing, just to make sure I'm not accidentally putting myself in charge of unfortunate individuals, but that is all they'll be able to communicate to me, because quite frankly, I don't want to know, nor do I care what you spend most of your time up to, so long as it's not causing any severe issues."
Verstat will look at the silver badge and say, "This is very kind of you. I've been meaning to come here and seek some sort of authority that I could demonstrate to the others in camp. They don't really approve of my license as much."
He nods and sort of leans back in his chair, and he looks at you, Verdstat, for a really long moment before he looks back at Verve, and then he turns his attention back to you, and he says, "Remind me again who your master was, I should say."
Toledo.
"See," he leans forward a little bit, and he says, "That's a little funny. I reached out, you see, to a colleague of mine, curious about the two of you, and although there is a bright wizard by the name of Toledo, he doesn't seem to have the authority to grant licenses."
No.
He holds out his silver hand and drums the metallic fingers against the desk which is surprisingly fleshy sounding, but there is definitely a metallic thunk. And he says, yes, you see, when I touched your magic license, I couldn't help but notice that, well, let's just say it's a very, very impressive attempt.
Verstadt will be very flustered. This is... What do you mean, attempt?
He sort of lightly brushes his desk and says, let's put it this way. I think that there's no issue with doing the best you can in regards to unfortunate circumstances, especially for those who perhaps struggle financially. I don't feel the need to draw attention to decisions you've made in the past, but I think it's fair to say that I may be passing along some apprentice-worthy tasks to you, and I expect them to be done correctly in a reasonably timely manner. And I think, well, silence is an excellent form of payment, don't you think?
Quite.
He nods and he turns to Verve and says, I don't really have an issue with, but there is something off about you, even for one of your kind. Something, I don't know, primal?
I raise an eyebrow.
He thoughtfully drums his fingers and says, in any event, the two of you, so long as you have these badges, not only will have it noted that you have the right to practice magic around here, but it will allow you entrance to the first floor, and only the first floor, of this tower. You may enter and go as you please, use the books as you need, though I would ask, and he glares over at you, Verve, he says, refrain from touching anything made of silver in the future. It is irritating when marks have to be buffed out of things.
I get a almost innocent looking face on like I put on like my most innocent.
Now then, I don't have any tasks for the moment for the two of you, but I have a premonition, let's say, that something's coming up fairly soon. So I expect the two of you to stay nearby until called upon, at least until your first task is taken care of.
Verstadt will just nod, sort of vacant-eyed.
Do you happen to have any knowledge of lore of these surrounding? There's a few images I would like to try and perhaps in a book that would help me understand something a bit better.
He frowns and leans back in his chair a little bit and says, the only thing around here that's noteworthy, besides just nonsense, myths, legends, idiot peasants, I have a few lores about the metallics of the minerals that can be found underneath these peaks. But if you're looking for more, let's say, story-based interests or things that may belong to the ancient primitive dwellers of this place, you might be more interested in what Anders has collected. I don't bother myself with local customs and nonsense.
I nod. Perhaps the village as well might know certain legend.
He smirks and says, "Perhaps, though I would be cautious about going down there. They don't take too kindly to people from the camp."
I will nod. I will take the badge that he offered, and I will look at it closely. And say, does this need to be visited?
He shakes his head and says, "No, it simply needs to be on your person."
I will nod, and I will pluck it into, like, a bag.
Alright, the instant you pick it up, you do feel like a weird resonance, but it immediately fades after you pick it up.
Alright, Verstappen will put his in his pouch as well.
You experience the same sensation. It's not an alarming sensation, it's just noticeable.
Yeah.
He nods to the two of you and reaches for his mask and says, "Well, if that's all, I have reading to do."
Why the mask?
He looks up.
You're obviously not scarred or scared of what you look like. Why the mask?
He laughs and says, "Unlike some individuals back in Altdorf who may need to hide their failures behind gold, my mask is more of a... let's just say it enhances the experience of absorbing information."
Enhances the experience of absorbing information. Interesting.
He
Sounds like quite the mask.
He scratches his chin thoughtfully and says, "Not sure what kind of effect it would have on one of your blood. Maybe one day that'll make for an interesting experiment. But there's too much to do now."
I will stand up and nod. And look to Verstappen and say, do we need anything?
Not at the moment, I don't think. And he will eye the door very eagerly.
Silverhand will sort of make a half-hearted shoe gesture before putting on his mask and becoming engrossed in the 5 or 6 books open in front of him.
I will lead the way.
Sotek, would Verstappen have understood that he just, like, laid the smackdown on Gel?
Vaguely, but as far as you know, you have no... For you, there is a lot of... Especially Gelt is very, very disliked by the Bright College, particularly for supplanting Gorman. You heavily suspect he was talking about Gelt. For all you know, he could be talking about any number of... Maybe that's like a thing among metal wizards.
Yeah.
But
okay.
it did seem very pointed at the Supreme Patriarch.
Okay.
I am back.
Alright. Alright. The two of you leave his tower without any issue. Alright. Wrist, you have finished up breakfast. Breakfast is being served out. Make sure all of your characters make at least some attempt to get food and eat. Otherwise, I will make a note of it in my journal and you will
I
come
will
to
go
regret
straight
it.
to rest.
Okay.
And
Lorp, how you doing this fine morning?
I'm doing rather well. How are you, Master Half?
Oh, Master Halfling it is now. That's great. I'm doing grand now that you've seen me station in the world. And he will take a bowl that he has set aside for you and hand it to you.
I will take it and say thank you. If there's anything I can get you, don't hesitate to ask.
Oh, fine then. I could use a lantern, a pole, but you know what? And he will take 2 bowls. There are some shopkeepers over the other side of the building. If you could give this to them, that'll do a treat.
I will nod and take the...
Okay. I'm gonna assume everyone gets breakfast, so they're as you are all easily in the camp and everyone's awake.
Yeah, Verstad just falls behind Verve.
All right. As you're all eating, you do easily note one another's presence fairly quickly. So if you can, or if you'd like, you can meet up. If any of you want to separate yourself out to go take care of some individual task, now is not a bad time.
Drax going to talk to Rolf and report in about the... Who has all the goblin ears?
I believe I do. So let me just give a quick morning greeting to Rist, then I will come with you to Rolf.